While looking at videos that I was going to feature in today's video, I was given a list on a website where we were having a quite animated debate. And when I say animated, I mean that somebody was just posting discredited videos and we were just debunking them on the fly. But he did provide me a list of YouTube videos. So what I was going to do was going to run through all of them and just debunk them one by one. But it turns out that after I got past the first one, it's a very small channel, it's only 216 subscribers, but hey, we've all been there. Until you post one particular video, which for some reason is amazingly popular and puts you over the 1,000 subscriber mark, but I digress. I was going to feature a video from this channel, but looking into it, he's only got about 8 videos. One of them has got exponentially more views than the others, and he hasn't posted anything 6 months. And the video I was going to feature, you've heard it all before. It's about conservation of momentum. Why, if we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, why can't we feel it? And he fills it out with loads of stock footage of peaceful dragonflies. I wasn't going to bore you with that one, so I switched on to another one. And in many, many ways, I really kind of wish I hadn't. Hello again, and welcome back to another one of these. I think that's becoming my catchphrase. Let me know what you think. As I said, I was going to feature one video, but it really would have been more of the same. But instead I found another video by somebody called P-Brain, insert your own joke here, and his video Circling Stars Over the Flat Earth, which is the same kind of title mechanic that CC uses. All his titles will have on the flat earth at the end. But this one, this chap, the video's a little old now, it's about 2 years old, but he tries to figure out, or tries to explain, why you can see circling stars at the South Pole on a flat earth. The science and the logistics of which just defy belief even by thinking about it. And again, it flies in the face of assertions made by nearly every other flat earther. But you know what flat earthers are like. They alone are the beholders of the only truth. Unfortunately, he gets a bit confused halfway through and he starts whispering about crepuscular rays, anti-crepuscular rays, the stars spinning around the North Pole, the stars spinning around the South Pole, and how you can see all of them at the same time simply by breaking every single law of physics there is. So we'll have a quick run through the video, pausing when needed, editing when needed, speeding up when needed, and chopping out amazingly large sections of nothingness when needed.
Hey everybody, P-Brain here. This video is about the clockwise southern celestial rotation that everybody says they see down from the equator south. And they say that it, rotates opposite of the northern celestial rotation around Polaris. Well, what I want to show in this video is that it's not its own rotation, but is in fact just a perspective illusion. It's an anti-rotation, in the same way that anti-crepuscular rays are anti-crepuscular.
So crepuscular rays, as you probably know, are just rays from the sun, which as you know is 93 million miles away, skitting through the Earth's surface, cutting through clouds and what have you, so we get these bars across the sky. This of course is a great source of inspiration for flat earthers, who when they see an image like this, believe that the sun is low and local and the sun's rays are literally going straight down from the point of light. This isn't the case of course, but because of perspective, it looks like everything's come down in the picture you see here. Again, if the light is strong enough, if you turn around and face the other way, those same rays will converge at a point in the horizon. Again, they are completely parallel, more or less, but because of our tiny size and the perspective, it looks like they're converging at a point near the horizon. This is a very simple concept on a globe Earth. Unfortunately, if you're going to try and translate to a flat Earth, you really do have to break the laws of physics in a completely incomprehensible way.
Okay, and they converge on the opposite horizon to a point much like when they come from the sun. They come and they diverge out and then they converge on the opposite horizon. Well, the southern celestial rotation is nothing but an anti-rotation of the northern celestial rotation.
We're only 42 seconds in on a 20-minute video and it's already so much garbage. The reason that the stars in the southern hemisphere rotate around a single point is because we're on a globe and we're rotating around a single point. Does he genuinely not see the irony in that name?
In the same way that the anti-crepuscular rays appear as though they're coming from a sun on the other horizon. They look the same way that the crepuscular rays do. The crepuscular rays diverge out from the sun, and when you look to the opposite horizon, the anti-crepuscular rays appear to be diverging out from the sun on the other horizon, but they're not. They're just the convergence of the crepuscular rays due to perspective. So it creates this illusion almost as if it's a mirror reflection of the crepuscular rays, so that's why they're called the anti-crepuscular rays.
You know when a toddler finds a new word and can't stop saying it? I think that's what we're experiencing here. No offense.
But they're not the source of the light to begin with. The source of the light is the sun. So that's the same way that the stars, the source of the rotation is the northern rotation, not the southern. The southern is just an anti or a perspective produced counter rotation.
What he's saying is that the rotation above the North Pole is genuine, but the rotation below the South Pole is just a anti-rotation or a reflection of opposite reflection of what's going on the North Pole. Right, okay. How in the name of Satan's portion does any of that make sense at all? I'm trying to get my head around it, and there is absolutely no way that if you were standing on the edge of what is their picture-shaped flat Earth, at any point you would be able to see the singular, you know, this is the debate that's had before about the 3 points on the South Pole. You would be able to all be able to see a singular anti-clockwise or anti-whatever rotation below the South Pole from 3 different points, but you'd see the same stars. There's a lot to go on this video. There's still a lot of time. Let's see how well he explains it, because so far he's completely screwing this up.
Crepuscular and anti-crepuscular rays is some strong evidence that perspective will in fact explain that phenomenon. So that's why in fact I'm using the crepuscular and anti-crepuscular rays to show a correlation between Polaris and its counterclockwise rotation and the clockwise rotation in the southern hemisphere. Now, you might say, well, how's that?
Crepuscular rays don't rotate. It's the light from the sun coming straight towards us and over the top of our heads, getting scattered by clouds and what have you. That's how they're formed. But I'm getting a headache already, and it's only 2 minutes.
Okay, let's say the sun's overhead, right? And let's say you can see all of the rays coming down, okay? It would look something like this, with the rays all around you. Okay, so let's attach the sun rays to the sun, and let's rotate the sun, as though it were Polaris and the stars, but we're going to use the sun. Okay, so as we rotate it, it'd be a counterclockwise rotation around you, right? Okay, now let's take a ground view.
For the purposes of this argument, the sun has to be directly above the North Pole at all times, constantly beaming crepuscular rays out to all points of the globe from one single light source. But I thought that the sun followed the tropics and the equator. That's how you get day and night. So if this is right, which it isn't, then how do we get sunrise, sunsets and eclipses?
Standing on the ground somewhere and you're looking out to the south, you would expect to see those same sun rays going across the horizon, parallel to the ground, just moving from your left to your right. That would be a counterclockwise rotation from your perspective. Okay, so let's now move the sun down to the horizon. So instead of being overhead, let's say it's in your eastern horizon and it's rising, right, sunrise. And let's say you have crepuscular rays, all right? They will diverge out from the sun, spread out overhead, and then converge on the western horizon. That's if conditions are right and you could see the anti-crepuscular sun rays.
Now he's using the Mercator map, and he's somehow, so I'm staring at my phone obviously because I'm trying to make sense of this as I watch it. So now instead of the sun being directly above the North Pole and casting out rays to all points of the edge, so to speak, it's now somewhere in the Indian Ocean, shining west, and then miraculously, for no reason or explanation, is converging again somewhere to the west coast of South Africa. I'm really glad I chose this video.
If conditions are right, and you could see the anti-crepuscular sun rays.
Interesting thing about the image you've just shown. I don't know if anybody's got like the panoramic photo ability function on their phone, where they've taken a picture and it's like panned across, or it's several pictures you can stitch together. And say you did it on a row of houses and you're standing on the opposite side of the street. As you look down that side, obviously it would be quite narrow, but it would come out in the middle and then go back down again. That's what he's just shown there. Even though all of the houses on that street would be the same height, more or less, depending on the street, but the image would show a massive bulge in the middle and two narrow points at each end. That's exactly what he's just shown, demonstrating that the crepuscular rays aren't converging or expanding out and then converging down the middle. It's a straight line. He just doesn't know what he's looking at. And I have had a preview. He has gone to great lengths to illustrate his point. It's quite impressive for all of the wrong reasons. But let's continue anyway. I'm sure it's going to get much more entertaining.
Attach them to the sun and let's rotate the sun counterclockwise. All right, so what you're going to see is if you're in the middle, you're standing essentially at its equator, right in the center between the sunrise and the sunset.
Why are the crepuscular rays rotating? When have they ever done that?
And you would look east and you would see the sun rays rotating counterclockwise. If you look to the west, you'll see the rays rotating clockwise. Okay, because a lot of people say, well, how come you see a rotation when you look south, you see a clockwise rotation of the stars? You know, when actually you look north and the stars around Polaris are rotating counterclockwise. Well, it's exactly the same phenomenon. There's one rotation, but when you look on the opposite horizon, the stars are rotating the opposite direction. And there's an anti-convergence, just like the anti-crepuscular rays converge on the opposite horizon. Okay, so here it is. This represents my sun in the east, and it's sitting on the horizon and has crepuscular rays coming out, and they're attached to the sun. We're rotating counterclockwise.
Well, you can't deny his devotion to arts and crafts.
And now, here we go, continuing to rotate counterclockwise, still rotating. And as you look in the opposite horizon, or in the western horizon, the crepuscular rays are now visually rotating clockwise as the result of perspective. So it was counterclockwise in the east and clockwise in the west. And just like in my example that I've done so far of the rotating crepuscular and anti-crepuscular rays, the stars also have a rotation and a counter-rotation. They rotate counterclockwise in the north and visually clockwise in the south.
Yes, because we're on a globe surrounded by a massive star field. It's a much easier, quicker and simpler way of explaining what we see at night, rather than making cardboard cutouts with long kitchen mold tubes.
Okay, let's break down this picture of the crepuscular and the anti-crepuscular rays. Okay, first off, the red dot, that's the observer. Right in the middle, the circle around the observer is your field of view for celestial objects. All celestial objects, the sun, moon, and stars, will go below your visual horizon at about a 6,000 mile radius from the observer. Okay, the diameter of this circle is about 12,000, 12,500, give or take. But all the objects will go below your horizon when they're 6,000 miles-ish.
No, about 6 or 10, not 6,000.
From you. Okay, so when you're looking back at the sun is about 6,000 miles away. Let's say the sun is rising in the east.
Try 93 million miles away.
Okay, and those crepuscular rays come up, and when they get to you, so they diverge out from the sun, they're spreading out, and when they get to you, your line here, the divider of the hemispheres, right in the center. Okay, so you're essentially at the equator of the start of the crepuscular rays and the end of the crepuscular rays, or your sunrise and sunset. You have your eastern hemisphere.
Wait, now you're standing on the equator. What about when you were standing on the North Pole?
That would be 180-degree view of the crepuscular rays. Then you have on the western hemisphere of your dome of vision or circle of vision, you have a 180-degree view of the anti-crepuscular rays. The rays come up, they spread out overhead, and then they converge on the other horizon, on the western horizon, as anti-crepuscular rays.
So if this is true, then the crepuscular rays going straight over your head should be straight. But if you look directly north from your point, you should see the crepuscular rays angle. You should be able to see them go up to a certain point, then turn and come back. Your words.
Now, if I told you to look at this ray going out here, and let's say that ray, look at the end of it, that's 12,000 miles from the sun, you might look out here. You might think, well, that's where the ray is. That's not where the ray is. The ray is right here at the point of convergence for the anti-crepuscular rays. Take a look at any one of these rays. They all go to the same place, you know. Any rays in your western hemisphere of celestial vision, this vision circle, they'll all converge at the same place, 6,000 miles away from where you are, the observer. And I'm going to be tying this into the stars and explain why Sigma Octantis can appear to not move in the sky during the night. So all objects on your anti-crepuscular hemisphere, if you will, that's what I'll call this, 180-degree view, at 6,000 miles away from you will be at that point of convergence. Now, from the observer, let's break this down into the rays that are 1,000 miles away from you, the anti-crepuscular rays, or look at the crepuscular, either or.
Well, that's all very good if you're standing on the equator, but what happens if you're standing in Droitwich? If the sun is somewhere near Thailand and you're standing in the middle of England, how would the rays look then? So is this all depending on the observer being in one specific point and the sun being in one specific point and it being a particularly misty day so that you get to see the crepuscular rays?
But the anti-crepuscular would be this line right here. That's 1,000 miles from you. So that's where all those rays would be at 1,000 miles from you. At 2,000 miles, they would be here. At 3,000 miles, here. At 4,000, here. At 5,000, here. And at 6,000, they go to a point. So we'll get into the stars in a second here, but the stars, like the sun rays, will converge 12,000 miles from the source. Okay, with the crepuscular rays and the anti-crepuscular rays, the source is the sun, and if you're in between, if you're at the equator, so to speak, in between the sun and the end of the anti-crepuscular rays, you will be witnessing 12,000 miles of sun rays that will spread out as they go over you and then converge on the other horizon 6,000 miles away from you or 12,000 miles away from the sun. Well, the stars do the same thing. They have a 12,000 mile convergence from the northern celestial rotation, and if you're standing at the actual equator on the Earth, you would see the stars converge in the southern sky. They would create an anti-rotation.
So now we've got magical stars that move in 3 different directions at once. This really is quite remarkable. I have to commend the guy on his expertise with creating his images. I couldn't do that, not yet anyway. It's impressive in the fact that it's helping to illustrate his point, even if his point is only so much toilet water.
Not a real rotation, just the anti-rotation of the northern celestial rotation. Okay, you'll notice how the stars are rising due east and setting due west on the equator line. So if you're on the equator, that's what you'll see the stars doing if you look overhead. Well, the sun and the moon are also circling around the northern celestial center, and they will also appear during equinox and solstice. The sun will appear to rise due east and set due west in a straight line, and that seems impossible.
But you're still demonstrating all of this on the Mercator map. How does this equate to your circular flat Earth? Because none of this, well, stands to reason, none of this is making sense, but it's not translating from one model to the other.
How can a circling sun create a straight line, or, make a straight line straight up and straight overhead? It's just a perspective issue, just like I show here with the crepuscular rays. See how that forms a straight line right here? Let me run this line up. Because that forms a straight line because it's perspective. Everything to the east of you converges and everything to the west of you converges from your perspective. That's why the sun can appear to rise due east and set due west. Okay, let me crop these and set them side by side and have them rotating in the same direction, the crepuscular rays and the stars, just to get an idea. You'll see the similarity.
Okay, now, for the sake of his argument, he's now had to rotate one map 90 degrees to make it match up with his idea of rotating star fields. So now that's 3 different maps to explain what happens easily on a globe.
Here's a commonly asked question, or a point brought up frequently by the flat earth debunkers. If all the stars are rotating counterclockwise around a northern celestial center, wouldn't the stars, viewed from the equator and you're looking out south, shouldn't the stars appear to drift left or right, counterclockwise, parallel to the ground?
Yes, they should. That's an argument that's been made many, many times by myself and others. Let's see how he handles this.
Continuing the rotation that we see around Polaris in the north. Wouldn't we, in fact, expect to see that? Right? And that's what a lot of people ask. Well, the answer is no, because look at the crepuscular rays and the anti-crepuscular rays, right?
Crepuscular rays are light rays from the sun. Stars are celestial objects hundreds of thousands of light years away, and we are a tiny, tiny speck of insignificance in the middle of all of that.
If you connect the sun rays to the sun while it's on the horizon, like Polaris would be if you're at the equator looking north, Polaris would be on the horizon. And what I showed with the crepuscular rays is if you connect the rays and you rotate it counterclockwise, you would see, as you look to the opposite horizon, the anti-crepuscular rays would be rotating clockwise and converging.
I'm still not understanding why he thinks crepuscular rays rotate. They never have.
That's what we would expect to see. We wouldn't expect to see the crepuscular rays diverging out from the sun, and then as they go over our head and head for the opposite horizon, continue to spread out, because that's not what we see. We don't see that in nature.
Because that's not what they're doing. They're going straight over the top of our heads. It's just our point of view makes it seem like they're doing that.
What we see are crepuscular rays that are diverging out from the sun, and as we look to the other horizon, we see a convergence of sun rays called anti-crepuscular rays. They don't continue to spread out. They converge to a point on the opposite horizon.
And I've got deja vu.
Because the precedent is set with the crepuscular and anti-crepuscular rays. The fact that they reconverge on the opposite horizon shows us that the stars would have a counter-rotation in the south. So if the crepuscular rays spread out from the horizon and then continue to spread out on the other side of us like this, then yes, you would expect to see the stars circling counterclockwise when you look south.
Even though everything he's saying is wrong, those two things aren't related anyway. So it's a false equivalence of his own making to try and discredit something that doesn't exist.
You would expect to see them moving left to right and just staying parallel to the ground and just as though one big dish with the center connected, being Polaris or the northern celestial pole. You would expect to see that. That's if we saw the sun rays do this. The crepuscular rays just keep spreading out onto the opposite horizon. But we don't see that. The crepuscular rays become anti-crepuscular rays, and they have a convergence, right? So they diverge out from the sun, now they converge. So the precedent, again, is set that the stars would do a similar thing.
Absolutely not. This is so nonsensical, it's farcical, and you'd think it would be a complete waste of time if it wasn't for the effort the guy put in. I mean, it's got nearly 4,000 views, bless him. And he's convinced of his own points, but it's times like these you think somebody should take these guys aside and say, you're getting it wrong and you're embarrassing yourself.
I just want to remind you about perspective. Perspective causes everything above us to angle downward.
Really? You're going to talk about perspective now? 12 minutes into the video when all you've been talking about is crepuscular rays, the very existence of which completely depends on perspective.
Right? The floor angles up and the sky, everything above you angles down. Look at these pictures of clouds, right? They all angle down to the horizon. Everything angles down to the horizon. So does the sun, moon, and stars on the flat Earth. So you can estimate that the celestial perspective, or how far can we see visually objects that are high up in the air, is about 6,000 miles, because that's where everything sets, about a 6,000 mile radius, right? A 12,000 mile diameter circle of vision. It's not where the ground horizon forms, but it is where everything in the sky goes down below the horizon. So Keep that in mind now as I show you how the stars are. And let's say the stars actually spread out for, hundreds, thousands of miles, let's say, and let's say we can't see them all.
Understatement of the Year award goes to P-Brain.
We can only see the dome of our perspective vision, which is about a 12,000 mile diameter circle or 6,000 mile radius. That's all the stars we can see. And the stars lower to the horizon at the edge of that circle, of a 12,000 diameter circle. So as you move, this dome of stars moves with you, or your dome of vision, I call it. Anyway.
So everybody on Earth gets their own individual dome of vision. Don't they bump into each other?
Let's check it out. Well, just like, let's say you're standing at the North Pole, right? And the stars rotate. You have Polaris overhead, and the stars are rotating around you counterclockwise. As you move south, Polaris starts to lower in the northern sky, and the stars start to tip. It's almost, I like to think of it as like a salad bowl, right? And so the salad bowl has the bottom is up, that's where Polaris is, and the rim of the bowl is on the ground. That's also where the sun would go around from your perspective at the North Pole. So as you head south, the salad bowl starts to tip onto its side, and so that, let's say you travel 3,000 miles south of the North Pole, everything would be rising in the northeast, sweeping out over the southern sky, and setting in the northwest, like this, right? And if you go all the way to the equator, Polaris would now be sitting on your northern horizon. The salad bowl would be completely tipped on its side, and half of it would be below the horizon.
So the further south you go on a flat Earth, Polaris comes down to touch the surface of the Earth at the North Pole, so that it's perfectly parallel with the horizon, and this is constant for all 7 billion people on the planet. Yeah.
And now all the stars would be coming up east to west, and so the sun would also rise east to west. And now that's a hard one to visualize.
Yeah, try impossible. So I went all Jeff Goldblum there for some reason. Sorry about that. This is so ridiculous. I did watch this earlier, and Max, tell me, when I was watching this video earlier, what was my expression like?
Anguish.
Anguish. Yes, thank you. That's a good word. I wouldn't have chosen that one myself, but I think that encapsulates
Disappointment.
frustration, confusion. Yeah. Let's get the thesaurus out. Yeah. Thanks, Max. Not that this had any grounds in reality whatsoever, but this is where it just completely falls apart. If there was one human being on the Earth, this may have some credence in reality. Well, if there was one human being on Earth and there was, everything was from their perspective, there'd be some credence. But we've got 7 billion people to think about here, and they're all going to be seeing the same thing. And if this guy's theory is correct, everybody gets their own personal bubble of stars, and Polaris bounces up and down above the North Pole, depending on who's looking at it.
Because if the stars are all rotating like a big disk around Polaris in the sky, a big flat disk, or if they're not a disk, they're a big dome, whichever one they are, if that's the case, and if it's a big flat disk and it's just perspective that's bringing the stars down, well then the people in the south say, hey, well the stars should be rotating just above the horizon, right? And stay equidistant to the horizon as they go around counterclockwise. That's what they'd say we should see. But that's not what we should see. We should see a clockwise southern rotation of the stars. See, we already know from crepuscular and anti-crepuscular rays how perspective works on a grand scale. I mean, that's over 12,000 miles. You see the sun rays diverging out from the sun, and then perspective converges them down to the other horizon. That's over a 12,000 mile span. Yeah, and just a little quick side note here. As I was doing the video, I thought of this. It's like, wow, we could see the sun, right? That's 6,000 miles away from us when it's rising. And if it's throwing out crepuscular rays and then anti-crepuscular rays, and the anti-crepuscular rays are going another 6,000 miles to the other side where they're converging, that's a 12,000 mile total. How is it we can see that on a ball?
Because you're not looking at the Earth, you're looking at the sky, and you can see more of the sky than you can see of the Earth.
I mean, that seems to work for a flat Earth, but how does it work for a ball? Anyway, just a thought. And another objection or question I've heard is on a flat Earth, how can four people around the Earth, like these guys here, how can they all see the same stars at night?
Yes, so this is a point that, again, like I said earlier, this is a point that has been posited before. If somebody's standing in Australia, South America and South Africa, all facing directly south, they can all see the Southern Cross, or the same set of stars, and the rotation, which he's been very badly trying to demonstrate. It's a question that's been asked several times before. Let's see how well he does with explaining it. Let's just hope it doesn't get too ridiculous.
Well, as you notice there, the stars are rotating around, right? I'd ask the question also is, well, how do we see the same sun? Well, we all see the same sun because the sun rotates around and gives us our daytime. Well, the stars rotate around at each other's nighttime.
Wait, I thought the sun in your case was directly above the North Pole because that's how you get crepuscular rays? Or was that the different map you were talking about?
Okay, now I'm going to show each guy, starting with the top guy. There's his little dome of perspective, or his field of view.
Please don't do what I think you're about to do.
That viewing circle, right? 6,000 mile radius. And the second guy has his night and he sees the same stars. Third guy, the stars rotate around, he sees the same stars. And now the fourth guy, there you go, he sees the same stars. And that's how that works, right?
No, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. I haven't been doing this that long, but that is quite honestly the most ridiculous, nonsensical and poorly thought out attempt at an explanation of converting something that we see easily and daily on a globe and trying to translate it to a flat Earth. The second flat Earth map, or third or fourth flat Earth, I've actually lost count of how many different maps he's trying to use to explain what we see easily and daily on a globe.
So now the question begs, and I came up with this question working on this video, and so I'm going to beat anybody to it, is how can Sigma Octantis be fixed in the sky? If in fact it is. They say it is. Okay, I'm going with it. Okay, this is so simple, right? Let's take a look at these crepuscular rays, all right? Now, this is a non-convergent crepuscular ray picture. I just want you to see, okay, that's where you would, if I told you to look out at the end of that crepuscular ray, where would you expect it to be? You might point out there and then say, no, it's not there. It's over here. It's converged. 12,000 miles from the sun, the ray has converged to a point. Okay, let's pretend that these are the stars rotating for a second around Polaris, and let's say Sigma Octantis is rotating 12,000 miles from the North Pole, and I want you to see that it's going to sweep across your entire field of view. In reality, but visually, you're not going to see that, because as we converge these lines the way they're supposed to be, they're going to all go to a point. Even though it's circling across your field of view, it's still going to be converged at one point, because it's 12,000 miles from the source, or 6,000 from the observer. Everything converges at that point. And so there you have Sigma Octantis sitting still all night long. I hope you found this useful. Thank you for watching.
That's the end of the video. Let me see if I can summarize this. Crepuscular rays rotate. They angle in the middle of the sky for no particular reason and then come back to a single point only if the sun is in Thailand and the convergence point is somewhere near South America, which also happens to be where Sigma Octantis is. But that only works on the Mercator map. It doesn't actually work on the flat Earth circular pizza map, where the sun is directly above the North Pole. Every single person who's standing on the planet Earth has their own individual sphere of influence of the stars around them, and no matter where they are on the planet, if they look towards the flat Earth south, which is the outer rim, they can all see Sigma Octantis irrespective of where they are standing on the planet or something. I think I'm getting a nosebleed. Okay, well, I think that was a bit of a journey for all of us. I shook my head in disbelief, and as Max said, I think anxiety was a very good expression. Well, I think that's been an important life lesson for all of us. People who have quite adept skills in one field can still have a very lax grip on reality in the other. None of that made sense whatsoever. It was kind of amusing to see somebody waste 20 minutes of their life, or the amount of work that went into that video, probably several hours, and still come out of it looking like a complete doofus. This is one of those examples where, like other flat earthers before him, he's got a notion in his head. He's put one and one together, made 275,473, and then gone with it, and nothing has dissuaded him from trying to prove that fact in his own mind. He's made a video to try to justify his thoughts, and it really hasn't gone too well for him. He really doesn't know what he's talking about. He's made things up as he's gone along. Complete word salad, or salad bowls in this case, and absolutely none of it makes sense. So, right, we're going to leave it there because that's been a bit of a trek, this one. The website, the page rather, is Flat Earth Banjo, whoever the hell they are. Flat Earth Banjo, USA, Japan and Brazil. There's a biblical quote to the top about the firmament, so that tells you all you need to know. And the first video on the homepage is promoting Eric Debay. Everything you need to know right there. So I will love you and leave you. I may need to take a rest because I have been visiting an ear, nose and throat person. I have a very deviated septum I've spoken about. I've had sinusitis I've spoken about, but a couple of weeks ago I had a hospital appointment where I had the most unpleasant experience I've ever had in my life, and that includes intimate medical procedures. I had a camera put in my nose, literally down there, round the back of the sinus and pointing down towards my voice box. I have bruised vocal cords, I have a damaged vocal cord on the right hand side with something called leukoplakia, which sounds scary but apparently it's not. Hopefully it's not as bad as it sounds. So I'm currently under the care of an ear, nose and throat specialist. I've got to drink Gaviscon Advanced, which is like minty wallpaper based. I've got to do steam inhalation, all these things I have to do, but one of the things I do need to do is rest my voice. Now I spend a lot of the time on the phone at work, which probably isn't helpful. This isn't helping either because I'm constantly talking, probably a bit too fast at times, but it's probably not making my throat any better. So I try and get some things out if anything strikes me, but it probably won't be in this format for a while because it may be doing more harm than good. But other than that, I will, like I say, I love you and leave you. Thanks very much for watching. Welcome again to all my new subscribers. Thanks again to Dan for promoting me the other day or last week. Stick around. I will try to do as much as I can to keep you all entertained in my humble little way. I'll probably go back to the movie stuff for a little while until more of this comes up. One thing I will point out, and I don't think it's a sign of anything, but the subject of my last few videos, of our last few videos, hasn't posted anything in over a week. And I don't know whether to be concerned or not. Maybe he's just on holiday. We all deserve a break. Thank you very much for watching. Say goodnight, Max.
Good night.
And I'll see you next time. Bye.